Okay,
How many people are here?
we
14.
have
15.
14 people.
Do we
Do you
expect
want
more,
me?
Marla?
I don't know. There are more people signed up, but it's 7:29. Do you want me to make you or Lewis a host?
Yes, make both of us.
I'll try. If I can only do one, which one?
Do me. Okay, Lewis.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hi, Steve Shaffrin.
Well, I'm Edie Unger Shaffrin. My husband's Steve. Sorry, didn't change that.
Wait, I'm gonna. Judy, you're now the host. I'm not able to make Lewis also the host.
All right.
I'll change that.
All right. Shall we start, Marla?
Please.
Is there somebody whose machine is making this sound? You don't?
I'm going to ask for now that we, except when you're speaking, put your computer on mute.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's see if we can do that. And I'll stay off mute. Marla, you can come in and go. And when you want our attention, either put something in the chat if we know how to look for, or put your hands up and make a fuss, and we'll be watching for you. Hello, everybody. I'm Judy Clappel. I'm speaking to you from Philadelphia, and I'm co-hosting this session with my friend from high school, Lewis Robinson, who's in Deerfield, Illinois. We're both tutors in English Biyahad, and I'm also on the board for Skilled Volunteers for Israel with Marla. And I wanted to start out by saying we're both, good adults, professionals, but we're not teachers. So if you're teachers, that's great, but we're not. And so the reason maybe that we were asked to start this session off is that we at least have done different things that maybe teachers wouldn't do, that we think are successful. And so somebody is not on mute, so so we're going to spend the next hour exchanging ideas on what has worked best with our students, and we want to hear your ideas, what you have tried, how you decided what to do, and how it worked. And we want to hear a range of ideas. So I want to remind you this is being recorded, and Marla will be posting it. I'm not sure where, but she'll let us know where it's going to be posted. And because of that, we're asking that you, when you speak, make efforts not to present identifying information about your student. So we want to guard their privacy. And also be concise. We suspect that a lot of people have had a lot of success doing a lot of different things. We want to hear what you've done. And start by telling us your name and where you're speaking from. And make sure that we hear every word, so unmute before you speak, and when we pass it over to the next person, make sure you mute. And one of us, I don't actually see the chat, so someone else will keep an eye on the chat.
Judy, I don't see it either.
Does someone have it? Oh, no, I put it up. So use the chat or wave your hands, and let's make good use of our time. And I've asked Lewis to be first, and so we'll line up after Lewis says what's going on with him. Okay, Marla's already told us that recording is going to be posted to the Skilled Volunteers for Israel YouTube channel. She's going to get the link out. That's in the chat. Now, Lewis, what have you been up to? Let us know.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining this group. Like Judy mentioned, I have not had formal teaching experience. I did tutor some students in Israel 40 years ago, but it was face-to-face, and it's a little different doing it by Zoom with someone who I haven't personally met. The young man that I'm working with, we've had a very good relationship from the beginning, easy to talk to. I had envisioned it being a little bit more formalized in terms of preparing lessons and going over things such as texts and written material, but it sounded like he really wanted to practice his spoken English and to get to a better level of fluency and self-confidence. So of course, I want to do what's best for him. So we try to speak twice a week, usually 45 minutes to an hour each session. I leave it pretty unstructured. He's easy to talk to. I've tried to introduce different topics that are of interest to him and vocabulary words that he would need in the future. But sometimes, I'll give you an example. Today we had a session this morning, and he had told me that he's learning to cook a little bit because he's living with some roommates in Lod where his classes are, and he's enjoying cooking. So I said, well, what did you cook? He said, well, I learned how to make spaghetti with tomato sauce yesterday. I said, great, let's walk me through that. Start from the beginning. What did you do? What ingredients did you use? And he started laughing. I said, no, really, I think it'll be a good opportunity to learn new words and just to describe in English experience you had today. So he did, and simple words, not so simple, but like he didn't know what gamba, which is like a green pepper in Hebrew, or a cutting board, spices. Anyway, we really had an interesting conversation. He enjoyed. He shared a recipe with me, and it seems like he's really enjoying the time we spend because they're so busy and so structured and a little bit stressed, I think, in their studies, that I feel that I want to make the time together not feel like a lesson or homework, but to feel like a conversation with a friend, getting to know somebody, and in the meantime, learn English. So it's been going really well so far, and that's pretty much my experience up till now. So who would like to join in?
Interesting. Put up your hands, folks.
Pearl's raising her hand.
Pearl, tell us who you are and where you. Pearl, tell us your name, Pearl, and where you're from. Uh-oh.
As I said before, I'm from Toronto. I was a school teacher, so I've taken a little different way of going about helping my student. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, you're doing fine.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure. Anyway, I've only had 3 sessions with him, and his main objective was to speak. So I zoned in on that with him, and his vocabulary is excellent.
Can everybody else please mute? There's a lot of background noise. Thank you.
His vocabulary is excellent when he would write to me. But then I noticed so many errors in, like he would say, I couldn't do this because of Shabbat. So I listened to him at first to see what he really needed. And like many people who don't speak English, verb tense, noun and verb agreement is lost. So I spent time with him and he really appreciated that. When we email each other, I do correct him on errors in grammar or whatever. And I send him, I get a paragraph ready for him every week to read. He has a terrible time with the TH sound. So
Yes.
we spend time with him. I show him how to keep his tongue. I told him to help him. And I make sentences for him that have a lot of TH sounds and make him slow down, think of how he's going to say it. As well as other problems that he has, in pronunciation, which is really what he needs. So basically, that's really what he wants. He wants to be able to speak properly. And so we talk a lot. I have him read paragraphs. We talk about the paragraphs. And he seems quite happy. The only thing, I was giving him a little bit of homework. And he wasn't doing it. And I think I read an article that Minna had sent out that some of them are quite stressed. And so I sent him an email and I said, is it too much? Would you prefer I don't give you homework? Our sessions were normally about an hour and 15 minutes. And last Sunday, we went an hour and a half because he wanted me to go over certain things. And he didn't reply right away. And then I got an email from him with apologies for not replying right away. He says he is so stressed.
Oh.
And would prefer I didn't give him any homework. I said, fine. And he said he feels like he's drowning in his work. So I have to keep it lighter with him. And that's where we're going from there.
Very nice. So
Telling me what we're going to work on the next week and review from the week before.
very
So
nice.
that's it.
I
Thank
see
you.
Linda Green said from Florida. Wait, Linda, put yourself so we can hear you. And then Lee,
How's that? Green
I saw
side.
your hand.
Yeah.
Hi, Linda.
Okay.
Tell us where you are, although we already heard.
I am in Wellington, Florida.
Yeah.
Just moved here permanently from Massachusetts. So I've only had a couple of sessions with my student who was absolutely charming and delightful and actually speaks English quite well, but has some trouble with verbs. And so what I did was I did do some homework. I wrote out some exercises and sent them to her. And then she sent them back and said that what she wanted to, before our next session, she wanted to go over them. So we spent quite a bit of time going over the exercises and explaining the difference between the past perfect, the pluperfect, you know, et cetera, tenses, not using those words, but using the examples of what they are in English and how they are actually used. What is the difference when, you know, I have had, or I will have had, or just I had, et cetera. And, you know, I think she found it quite helpful. So again, so after spending time discussing this, I did another whole set of exercises to see how next time, how much of that she grasped and is able to internalize. But her English actually is quite good. Her pronunciation is also quite good. And, but I think that I will start doing exactly what you suggested earlier on, which was to focus on a topic and try to improve vocabulary in a particular area, because their vocabulary is sectionalized. In other words, it has to do with their work and their everyday life, and things that are outside of that probably did not get that much use. And we can explore all kinds of different topics, you know, whatever it is, taking a trip, going to the bank, going to the grocery store, et cetera. And, you know, politics, depending on their level, because I say the young lady I'm working with, her English really is at a high level at this point.
That's very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I see Lee, and then I see Myra, and I see Judith, and I see Hillary, but first Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee Rubenstein, and I'm from Milwaukee, and I am working with a 30-year-old who also has a pretty strong command of English. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've come to a point where he prepares the written material in advance and sends it to me. That way, it's pertinent to what he wants to learn and what he's comfortable with, or what he wants to gain improvement on. And it provides a couple of options. One, we can go through the grammar and we can go through the punctuation. And then we can go through the fluency, and then it also allows me to do clarification or follow-up so I can hear him speak extemporaneously. And we have come to discover that he has pretty good fluency when it comes to a personal conversation, but his hang-up is his professional fluency and his ability to be able to communicate his ideas in an efficient way without having to describe it in 10 words, and how to be able to do it with 1 word. So that has been a very useful tool. It puts skin in the game as far as he is concerned, and he controls what it is that he wants to learn, and it gives us a platform on which to really work on various areas. As we're speaking, and if he mispronounces, he has told me to interrupt him, to give him the correct pronunciation so that he learns on the spot.
Wow.
And what we also do is we try to come up with vocabulary words in one word for what he will use to explain maybe in 5 words. And he often doesn't know what the vocabulary is. And so we go through that. And on his suggestion, he has said at the end of our sessions, we should have a pop quiz. And I should ask him about those words and have him explain them to me so that he has a full understanding. Now, I also mentioned to him that we were having this group session on the teacher level, and he thought it would be very useful for the students to likewise have a session where they can figure out best practices and how to get the most out of this experience.
Wow.
That sounds
Marla,
great.
yeah, take a note. Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Lee. I saw Myra wanting to speak. Would you like to go next, Myra?
Yes, fine. Myra, I live in New Jersey, Central Jersey, near Princeton. My student is an older woman. She's Ethiopian, and she has 3 boys. The oldest is a senior in high school. So she worked as an ozeret, a maid, but this week she's starting as a teacher in a gone in a kindergarten. So she's very excited about making the transition to a profession. Her English is at a really low level. So she's not very fluent. I do speak Hebrew. So sometimes I have to switch to Hebrew to explain something. But I've been to Ethiopia. So we talk about that sometimes. In fact, I just sent her pictures when I was on my trip to Ethiopia. It was a Jewish Federation mission about 6 years ago. We always start off the lesson by talking about what each of us did the week before. And I take notes because then I use that for my next lesson. She'll speak hesitantly, but it's getting more fluent as we meet each week. We meet for about an hour and 15 minutes once a week because she does work. She was going to school, studying for her degree, and she has the 3 boys, and she's divorced, so she's a single mother. So the lesson begins with, well, now we review what we did last week, and I write that out in very simple sentences, and I prepare a lesson in files that I use on the whiteboard now. So she can see it. Instead of just looking at it, we have it right up on the screen. So at first we review and I read what we did the week before, maybe 4 or 5 sentences. Then I have a section called About Me. And again, in simple sentences, I tell what I did the week before. And on occasion, I add a Hebrew word in parentheses if I think it's something she might not know. And then we have a section called About You. It's what she's told me she did the week before. So she recognizes it because she spoke about it. Again, sometimes I have to add a Hebrew word in parentheses, but we're talking about ourselves, which makes it easy. It's funny that you mentioned about the TH sound, because that's the first thing we worked on. There is no TH sound in Hebrew, so they usually Hebrew speakers have trouble with that. So we worked on that, and I had samples of words just to pronounce, and then when I wrote out the lesson, I underlined every word that had a TH, whether it was the beginning or the middle or the end, and we practiced that. Then we went to am, is, and are, because in Hebrew there are no words for that. So we talked about that, and I had written out I am, you are, he is, etc. And after that, she would have to finish the sentence. So again, it's on the whiteboard. I am, and then she could say anything. I am a teacher. I am in school. You are. She finished the sentence. And then I'd write a Hebrew sentence that she would have to translate. Like
Yes.
Ani Mora, I am a teacher. She'd have to write the English. I don't give her homework. She can just work from what we did. I do use a lot of pictures.
Are you a teacher?
I was.
I could tell. Okay.
I did many other things, but I was a teacher. I use a lot of pictures. One week, she went to a lot on vacation with her boys, and I said, okay, then I'll see you the following week. She's very enthusiastic. She did not want to miss a lesson. So we had a lesson via WhatsApp in her hotel room because she wanted to have the lesson. So I used that. For the following lesson, we talked about that, and then I had pictures of things she had told me. She ate in McDonald's, they were on the toilet, so I found pictures, and she had to look at the picture and then give me an English sentence. Again, it was her own experience, so she was able to form simple sentences. I reminded her about the TH sound, that am is an R. And then I always ask her what she'd like to do. At first, one of the early lessons, she wanted to know how to go in a restaurant and order. So I made up a sample conversation that we read, and then we practiced that. And then we pretended we were meeting. There was nothing to read, so she could talk. And we could order, and if there are words she didn't know, then I make up a dictionary for her for the next week, and I started doing it in a table format so she can cut it and have.
She sounds very engaged.
Yeah.
She sounds very
Yes.
engaged. Yes.
Judy?
She
Yes.
is.
Judy, can I just add something?
Yes.
It's interesting because I think all of us, when we're dealing with pronunciation, the TH sound, of course, is difficult. One word that I found is useful to help emphasize the pronunciation of TH is the word Ethiopia. And
Oh.
Good one.
I know my student started laughing when I said that. I said, I'm not saying it because your parents are from Ethiopia. It's because the TH is very, very easy to hear in that word.
Never thought of that.
That's a
Yes.
good one,
That's great.
Lewis. All right,
Listen,
let's move
Hebrew-
on. We'll come back to you, Myra, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I see Judith. Unmute yourself, okay?
Yeah.
I'm unmuted now. Hi, and I'm joined by my husband, Paul, who is also a tutor. So, but we have different students, and our students happen to be roommates and best friends. So, so that's really nice. So we started out with very informal conversations, and then I asked my student, he's at Tech Careers, and he's very focused on getting a job. He's almost finished with the program, and that's what he wants to think about. And his English is very good. He's very fluent. So when I had asked him what he needed, what he would like to work on, he's the one that had said he wanted to work on definitions that had to do with coding. And so that has been distributed.
Oh,
to
you're the
people.
person that did that.
Yeah. But the wonderful thing about that is that it was my grandson who made up the definitions, who made up the list with the definitions, and he joined us for the call. And after a little talk about the definitions, what happened is they started sharing their programs with one another, their computer programs. And in fact, our grandson has asked, can he come back again? And could he email with my students? So I think that's going to be a really nice way for him to practice his English as well.
With your grandson, yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's very nice.
Who's a teenager. One of the things that we did is after that, I asked him what I could help him with his resume. He said he would send it to me, but in the meantime, we looked together at his LinkedIn page, and we kind of polished that a little, polished the English, gave us a lot to talk about. Again, because that would be very helpful to him. At one of the sessions, we did a mock interview. And he said that he was going to a lot of lectures about how to interview and what to do. So we decided to practice what he'd been learning and what I knew about interviewing as well, having been an interviewer many times. And so the hardest thing was for him to find the vocabulary to talk about his own strengths. So we tried to do that, tried to help him with that language. What I tend to do is take notes during our interactions and find out what it is that, that he's having trouble with, the vocabulary, definitely the noun verb agreements. And the last couple of minutes, the last 10 minutes, we use the whiteboard, I write it out, and then I send it to him afterwards as a follow-up. It's just been really nice because of the variety of what we do. We've tried to share, we've showed pictures to each other of our families. He's very impressed with our family, and I'm very impressed with his. We talk about what surprised you during the last week, and he shared a recipe from his mom. So we try and make those connections as well. So it's been a really nice experience, and I want to thank all of you that have spoken so far. I've gotten a lot of good ideas that I've written down, so thank you. I'm looking forward to the next session.
All right. I see Edie has chimed in that she's grateful for the list of tech terms. Did you also want to speak, Edie? No?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Okay, and then we'll go to Nahama.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Edie Younger-Shaffron. I live in Cleveland, Shaker Heights, a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. And my student is a young mom. She's got 2 very young children. She's exhausted. She's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they're absolutely beautiful. This has been so amazing for me. Because we've had a great time just chatting. I did have a teaching certificate. I'm a school psychologist, so I work in schools every day. Well, actually now it's virtual, but I've been doing this for over 30 years. And I have a special ed teaching certificate. So I understand the learning process, but she oftentimes just wants to kibitz, just wants to chat. We did talk a lot about homonyms, and I lived in Israel for a few years, so I would relate a lot of the information to how I learned Hebrew well. And I just relate everything to the shoresh, to the root word. I also pulled out I can show you, I brought it out here, first 1,000 words in Hebrew, which gives me tons and tons. It just categorizes everything. So we've talked a lot about, the words in English that are important, everyday words that we use. The TH has always come up. We've talked about TH words. We've talked about homonyms. We've talked about irregular plurals. I can understand her English. It's pretty good. But the grammar's not so great, and she wanted to learn tech terms. She does quality assurance, or she has done quality assurance in the past for a tech company, and she really wants to advance her career. She seems to me to be extremely bright. So I learned a lot of new tech terms. Thank you again for providing those. And I did some research on my own. I have a son who's a software engineer who helped me with some of the other terms. And so I don't know these terms in Hebrew because when I lived in Israel, I never needed to use these terms in Hebrew. So it's been quite the learning experience. I'm just looking at my notes. We did a lot of conjugating of verbs. And I've been teaching her really similarly to how I learned Hebrew. And I put things on, she writes things down, I present them to her via Zoom. And it just seems to work. But she also loves, we both just love to chat. And she tells me about her families. They've had several Brit Milah in the past couple weeks. And we shared photographs, and she's just incredibly lovely. And my daughter hopes to study in January, and so I'll be going to visit for sure. It's been wonderful, and we meet once or twice a week for an hour, sometimes 2 hours. Sometimes we're just chatting, and we just keep going on and on. So, but I appreciate it. I appreciate all that I've learned and the ability to help my student as well.
Thank you.
It's great, thanks.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I saw Nahama was wanting to speak. Where is she?
Okay, so
Yes.
my student is 23 and very bright and adorable. And it feels very personal being with her. But I've seen her maybe 6 weeks. We meet twice a week. I used to keep notes of the grammar stuff that she had difficulty with and of the new words that came up and send them to her during the week. But it's clearer and clearer to me that she doesn't study them. She doesn't study them. She's very serious about her work. She's very serious about learning the technology and having a career afterwards. And she is just wrung out, I think. We don't see each other until 7 at night, her time. That's when she can see me. Sometimes later if she's seen a tutor. So I used to do grammar, and I taught at Bronx Community College. I taught remedial English to adults for decades. So I thought I would be very good at this. But in fact, it is just irrelevant. So I offered to teach her words that have to do with marketing, because she worked in marketing before this college, and that's what she wants to do. But what she likes the best, besides some chat, she asks me about my life, tells me a little bit about hers. I started reading with her. We started reading who was it? Was it Marla that sent me the list of short stories? I don't remember. Somebody sent me a website of short stories. So we started the necklace, and it's hard for her. The vocabulary is hard for her. Her English is not as good as it sounds to me as if some of your students are. And she said to me just this week that she feels hesitant in a class when she travels, and she has traveled to a number of European countries, that she's less shy about just opening her mouth. And she laughed and said she wasn't scared of me. But at any rate, the vocabulary is difficult, but we read it together. And she wants to know what's going to happen next. And I said to her, we could spend some class time going over grammar. And she said, no, she's reading the story. So I think after this story, we'll find another story. And Monday is the first class that I did not follow up with comment vocabulary and useful stuff. I just didn't want to drive her crazy. What's the use? She knows what she wants. She's a grown-up.
Listening.
Thank you. Judy, can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think several of us have commented that the students seem to be stressed and under a lot of pressure. And I've noticed that with my student from the beginning. And he did explain to me that their course in itself is difficult, but because of the corona, they've missed parts. Instructors have not done what it's just been it's been compounded in terms of the difficulty and the stress level for them. And I know he spent a few Shabbatot there and not gone home to try to catch up. So I think we're all sensing that we don't want to be an extra burden to them, and just go with the flow with them and make it work. Yeah.
Marla.
I would just add to what Louis has said and say that some of the students who just finished the course are now competing in a hackathon for jobs that are being offered by Wix Corporation, a high-tech company that's recruiting tech careers. There's about 20 students who just finished who are competing, and there's only 4 or 5 spots. It's very, very intense. So Minna has started to get feedback from the students who just finished, and I don't know if that's any of yours, but they may need to miss a session or make shorter sessions because they're involved in this very intense process to compete for jobs. So there's a lot going on for the students, and I really appreciate how each of you is sort of picking up on that and adapting. So thank you.
I want to say something. This is Judy speaking. Um, about my experience briefly, because it has to do with what my student and I have decided, that she's under stress, but she's on staff. She's not a student at this moment, but the general stress level is high. And so she said she wants to enjoy and have fun. And so our task when we meet is to enjoy and have fun, which, of course, practicing English. Her level is probably at the level that I heard Myra's student is, and possibly Nahama's student, because it's a different level. We have to do different things. But I just want to say briefly what we did yesterday, which was so fun. It was so fun. She told me that we were talking about music, and she loves Beyonce. And so I said, well, what are your favorite songs? And she said, Hello. Well, I don't know much about Beyonce, but we decided that we were going to learn Beyonce songs. So she told me the names of them. So I went to one of the people I work with in my office, who's a young African-American woman, and who loves Beyonce. So I learned all the Beyonce songs that my student wanted to know. And then we reviewed the lyrics. And then we sang them, and we put on the YouTube and sang to the Beyonce, and it was relaxing. It was fun. She learned some slang that she probably shouldn't use at a job interview, like ain't and how Beyonce. I love that shit is one of the things I said. Don't use that in a job interview, and we've got some more songs. So I mean, that was just something as a relief, as a way to keep learning, as a way to stay at her level, as a way to have fun. And that's what I wanted to add. Who wants to be next? I saw Betty Ann has something to say.
Yeah.
Can I just add one thing
Yeah,
to that? I think that's a great idea. Just and I encourage my student also, and any kids who come in who have English, who are English language learners, to watch TV, watch videos, watch
Right.
soccer, watch Sesame Street, Rehov Sum Sum, you know, whatever it is, whatever they're interested in. I did the exact same thing. My student loves to dance, so I sent her a bunch of videos about dancing or dancing themes. And she loved it. And people pick up English so well when they're engaged, when they like what they're hearing. And you can, put it on hold and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Go ahead, I'll mute.
Would you tell me about dance? We tried singing and she really didn't like the singing, but she loves to dance. Will you tell me about dance videos?
I'll tell you exactly what I sent to her. I'll just bring it up on my WhatsApp.
Put it in the chat,
we talk all the time on WhatsApp. What?
You want to put some information in the chat here?
Sure. It takes me a while.
All right,
oh my gosh.
we'll go to Betty Ann while you work on that.
All right.
I
mean, there's so many dance ones. Go ahead.
Like Pearl has something to say related to this, possibly.
Yes, well, my student works in a tech firm, one of 4 people. I don't know what his stress is all about, whether I don't know. But one of the things I did suggest, 2 things I suggested to him. My granddaughter's boyfriend is a real techie, and I suggested if my student would my granddaughter's boyfriend said he'd be very happy to communicate with him if he had any questions, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know whether he's interested in that. But the other thing with the pronunciation is I told him to, on YouTube, to find singers like Frank Sinatra, who sings very slowly. And I asked him if he liked to sing. He says he loves to sing. So I asked him this week, I said, did you sing with Frank Sinatra? He said no. So that's when I thought, I got to back off a little bit. And But I've done a lot of those things with him too, and suggestions for him. But I guess I don't know how to help him with his stress level, and I don't want to get involved in his personal affairs, so I just have to wait it out, I guess.
Hmm,
Can I speak to the stress level?
please.
My student is a 30-year-old, and he's in the work sector. And we used much of our conversation today to discuss this very topic because it was brought up in the email and the stress that he is under. Now, last week, we couldn't speak because he had a project and he was under a lot of stress. And so I said, so how do we handle that? And his comment was that that's on the student and what their priorities are. And for him, even though he has a lot of stress and he is working and he's accountable, he knows that if he's ever to get further ahead, he has to improve his English. So he's making English the priority. If he can't get his English to a point where he feels comfortable that he can conduct his business, he's never going to progress. And this is something he has verbalized. So I commended him, and I think it's noteworthy. It's a great theory, but we're all challenged with dealing with stress on whatever level it is. And so it was interesting to hear his point of view.
Very.
The only other thing that I wanted to say was, I forgot one more tip. We use WhatsApp, and he will communicate with me through WhatsApp. And with his permission, I make corrections to the grammar and to the punctuation. So that's another learning point. I don't allow sloppiness. He can get that anywhere else. And I'm his go-to for proper English. So I have a high standard, and I expect him to use that whenever he communicates with me.
Okay, thank you. Betty Ann, I think, has been waiting.
That's right. It's been very interesting. And bits and pieces of what everyone said is what I experienced for the most part. I'm in Florida. My student is probably around 30 something, young man, very bright, very talented, and also has a very high priority in speaking American English, which is very difficult. What we find often are the tenses. So sometimes he'll use the wrong tenses. I'm sure you all experience that as well. What happens when I'm with him, it's nonstop talk. We talk and talk and talk. The first time I met him, he was a little bit hesitant. Who am I? Can I trust her? Is she going to judge me? Stuff like that, which we all feel. And once we were able to accept each other completely, it's been a very wonderful experience. He shares with me his background and his family's background, which is vital to him, coming from Ethiopia. And as the man in one of the men in the family, he still has his mother and father. The family is number one. They meet every week. They have their special coffee. They talk about politics, and they talk about the times that they miss, even there at home. Is Israel their homeland? Yes. Is Ethiopia also their homeland? Yes. And there's honor with that memory, at least when I'm with him. And I understand that very much so. I was an English as second language instructor for many years in Philadelphia, actually one of the suburbs.
Oh, okay.
And my students came from all over the world, and we only spoke American English. People always said to me, "What? You must speak so many languages." No, it's English as a second language. So everyone who came in, as difficult as it was, we all spoke American English. And if two people were from Brazil, I would not have them sit next to each other because they would speak in their own language in Portuguese. So it's constantly speaking and practicing. One of his goals, his dream, is to come to the United States and go to California.
Okay.
I
By the
told-
way, Edie just posted her great dance movies in the chat. Everyone take a look.
I love it.
Thank you, everybody. It's okay with you. I see Hillary's been waiting. And so let's see what Hillary's up to.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes?
All right, I'm relatively new. I've only seen my student a couple of times, but he's, you know, definitely fits the mold of what everybody said, wants to get a better high-tech job. He had worked in the Air Force while he was in the Army, and he has, you know, graduated, and he's been out for a little while. And the problem is that I told him, you know, I asked him if there were any English speakers in his household, and he said his father. And I said, can you, you know, speak to him some of the time rather than in Hebrew? And he said that it's very difficult for him, and he's very reticent to do that. So I said, well, you need to watch movies on television in English, or look at the newspaper. And I wanted him to bring me a topic, you know, a paragraph from something that he read to talk about. So we conversed some about that, and I asked him to tell the story in his own words. And I could see where his failings were in terms of grammar. And I find that knowing syllables and stress on words is very helpful. I tutor through the Palm Beach, I'm in Florida, the Palm Beach County Library system, a Ukrainian student, and tapping out the syllables helps her a lot. But
What's
identifying
to tap? What does that mean? Tap
you might take your hand and your fingers and tap how many syllables there are.
Under your chin.
Or under your chin. Well, yeah.
Then you
Is
can
that-
hear how many syllables there are with each.
Right. And that's very helpful. I also find that role play dialogue is good. Like, I'm a shopkeeper and he's, you know, coming into the store to buy something, and he might talk about what he wants to buy, and the interchange in conversation is very helpful. Someone mentioned homonyms. We spent some time with that, and also with idioms, which were very funny, so it lightened the conversation. He understood what I was saying, you know, like the sky is falling, or it's raining cats and dogs. The difference between literal and figurative speech. You know, just nuances like that that help to make you understand in common parlance with other people. So the whole idea of reading and analyzing, but then speaking a lot. Now, I hear that some people are doing this at least twice a week. So far, he only wanted to commit to once a week on Shabbos. You know, also pressure, I guess, in terms of his job and whatever, or wanting free time. You know, they want to learn, but they don't want to learn. So that's so far what my experience has been, but I'm finding this very helpful. And also I spoke to Marla today, and the idea of interview questions so that you would prepare your student for a job interview, or perhaps a letter of introduction to a potential, you know, employer. So those kinds of things I'm going to see what I can do with also. I think the interview process.
or maybe Marla would share that, or at some place with what questions you're. I mean, at some point, at some place, what those
Yeah.
questions are, right? Thanks, Hillary.
You're welcome. Thank
I
you.
see the box with Shlomo Chaviv and his wife are there. They want to speak? Wait, unmute yourself.
We're both tutors and we both have different students. I'll go first just because what you brought up about interview, my student also wanted to work on speaking mostly, but then first she asked about preparing a resume and then her LinkedIn profile, and now wants to prepare for interviews. So we've been speaking throughout doing all that stuff. The interview process that she told me that they will go through, and I again, I don't know, but is that the first interview with a potential person is going to be in Hebrew. Then they're going to be asked to present a project that they've worked on in English, because they need to be able to do that in English for their companies. And then the third part will be a coding assignment of some sort that they have to, or programming, or I still don't know what the difference is, but I'm obviously not a tech person. My student is a young woman, also Ethiopian. She was in the intelligence part of the army, and she spent a couple of years extra in the army as Keva,
Officer.
an officer in the army. And then after that, she went to South America for 8 months or 10 months, like many young Israelis do. And she had learned Spanish before that by watching telenovelas. And so we laughed about that. I said, well, I've been just watching Jane the Virgin, and that would be a great way for you to learn some more English if you like telenovelas. You can. Anyway, so that was funny. And then I shared with her that my kids, when we moved to Israel, first learned Hebrew by watching cartoons. And so their first words were Hatzilu, Hatzilu, which is save me in Hebrew. So the other one thing that I wanted to share is that both Shlomo and I have used verb tenses. There's a PowerPoint that Marla sent at some point that is about verb tenses. And 16
of them.
There are 16 verb tenses, but only 10 of them are used, something like that. And it goes through and has these little stick figures showing you what they're doing. And it's really good, and it's really helpful in terms of the verbs.
And where is that posted, Marla? Where is that? Is that on Facebook?
I think it was on one of the first emails that you sent out as a.
I'll repost. I'll repost it, and I've now integrated that link into the guidebook, so I'll get that out again.
And the last thing is that my student had trouble not so much with THs, but with Rs, and lots of Israelis have hard time with R's. But she was trying to say the word form and just could not get it out. And when I kind of focused more on the O sound, which was hard for her also, then the R came better. But you go ahead.
A few things. First of all, we talked about the tenses. I used that tutorial, whatever it is, that Marla sent. And it was great for me to see how little I know about the real grammar behind this. I can speak it, I can understand it, I can read it and write it, but explaining it to somebody else, forget that. It was really a challenge. I find it very interesting to hear the differences in our students. Some of them very fluent, some of them very struggling a lot. I heard a lot of different things. Also, TH, I never noticed a problem that he has. My student is a young almost 24. Ethiopian. I did not notice TH issues at all, but maybe it's my hearing and not his TH. We'll see. I noted it. I noticed something. I want to ask you if you also see this. He tends to put a space at the end of a sentence before the period or the question mark or whatever ends the sentence. They put a space there. Did you notice? Did anybody else notice that?
I did. I corrected it right away,
With
and
yours?
she hasn't done it again.
Uh-huh. He keeps doing it. So yeah, I don't know. It must be coming. He was born and grew up and learned everything he knows in Israel. So it's not something I don't think that he brings from Ethiopia unless the family has a lot more influence than the schooling. I don't know. Reads fluently, but really struggles to speak. He has to stop again and again and again. And if you are Israeli or understand Hebrew, you would hear him often goes, why, which is the way that Israelis say, oh, this is mother, this is hard, this is difficult.
Fascinating.
So in the beginning, of course, in the introductory meeting, I asked him what his goals are. And he said to speak well and to prepare for interview. So we've been speaking, mostly speaking, although in the last 3 sessions, we now have had 7. In the last 3, we did more going formally over something. Today was his resume, or actually questions in an interview. Next week will be the resume. Before that, we did the tenses. And I just noted to myself that we need to go back to speaking more because this is probably his weakest area. He reads, when he reads, he goes very fast and he seems to understand what he's reading. But speaking is a challenge. So I'm gonna focus more there.
Very good. You see Betty Ann is asking, I guess.
One last.
Sure. Go ahead, Shlomo.
I just want to say that the whiteboard is a blessing. I wish I had it when I was young. It's just great. And we use it all the time. And I save it, record it, and then I send it to him at the end of the session. All the different versions that we used.
Wow.
Can I ask one question? You say that there's no R sound in Hebrew. Well, what about Rachel?
No, it's
Rosh Hashanah.
It's not that there's no R sound, it's different.
It's not pronounced R, it's pronounced R.
R.
Oh, wish.
Different R sound.
It's a different sound, so it's hard for them to get the correct.
Well, how would you say Rosh Hashanah on?
Rosh Hashanah.
No, the R sound.
You heard it?
Rosh.
Rosh.
No, it's more in the back of the.
There are 2 different ways in Hebrew to say R. One is Rosh, one is Rosh.
Rosh. Oh, okay.
Neither of them are like our R.
I didn't notice any problem with my students with the R.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, we have about 3 minutes left. And people that haven't spoken, something urgent you guys want to add? Otherwise, anyone everyone has last things to say. Let's say Lee say something for a minute, and then Myra a minute, and then we'll a minute to thank everybody.
I just want to say how grateful I am to be a teacher. I have found this to be a very gratifying experience. I think we are moving the needle in so many ways. And I think what Skilled Volunteers for Israel is doing is terrific. So I want to thank you.
Wow. Wow. And we have some clapping up in the corner there. But, oh, and Edie's clapping with an emoji. Myra, do you want to say something at the end?
Yeah, I agree. It's an incredible experience. I'm also a tutor for 2 high school girls with Israel Connect, although students change it every week. It's another program for tutoring. They're high school students. The organization provides the lessons for you. It's another great experience. I just wanted to add, besides my weekly Zoom lesson, often during the week, I will send a message on WhatsApp, a short message, and she'll respond. It's just another way of staying connected and seeing what she's doing, showing her that I care what's happening. Like she said, she was very busy because I guess she had to set up her room. So I wished her luck and asked her to tell me how the first day will be. So it's another way of staying connected and a chance for her to read my English and for her to write her English.
Definitely.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Louis, take us
I'm
out.
here.
Take us out.
Pardon?
Take us out.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for participating. I think it went really well. I think we've all learned a lot, and definitely practical things that we can apply to our tutoring. And thank everybody for all the hard work and effort that they've put in. And I'm glad to hear it seems like almost all of us are really enjoying it, and we're getting out as much as we're putting in. So continued good luck, Batzlacha, and we'll hopefully do this again soon. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marla, for creating the space and allowing us to
Arba.
come together. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Bye.
Laila tov.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
This was so helpful.
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you
Take
all.
care.
A pleasure.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank
Well, wait,
you.
thank